I have spent the past year, apart from Gaza, trying to look at rough analogies. And for me, the most telling analogy is the Nat Turner Rebellion. Nat Turner was a slave, happened to have been a very smart guy. Everybody agrees on that. White, black, there was consensus. Nat, as they called him, was a very smart guy. He was a religious fanatic, totally steeped in the Bible, steeped in the Old Testament. In fact, a book just now came out on Nat Turner, literally about a month ago. And they just talk about how deeply he was steeped in the Old Testament. And that was the idiom, the language in which he translated his situation. It was Pharaoh. It was Exodus. It was killing all the Canaanites. But he had no grand strategy. He was a very smart guy, for sure, but he didn't have the mental range that can only come from training, from study. He just wanted, like the folks in Gaza, he wanted to shatter the status quo. He had some expectations. He might cause a massive uprising, that he would get a response from other slaves. Didn't work out. It didn't work out. But I think it was, when I read about the Nat Turner Rebellion, and I read quite a lot this past year, it was striking to me how close the analogy was. Basically, what happened in Gaza was a slave revolt. But like Nat Turner, it didn't have realistic prospects. If you remember when it happened, Syed Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, he made a point in his public speeches at the time of saying, they didn't tell us. They did not tell us. Because Syed Nasrallah, who did have the range, he had the mental range. He had the mental range, and he also had 32 years as the leader of Hezbollah, so he had lots of life experience. And in politics, life experience is irreplaceable. It's irreplaceable. That's, by the way, and this is a complete tangent, why the Bernie Sanders campaign took off, and Dr. Cornel West, who was a surrogate of Bernie during those campaign years, his did not take off. Dr. Cornel West, he's not second to anyone in brilliance, extremely smart guy. He's got breadth and depth, but the experience, and Nasrallah has the experience, and they weren't ready. They weren't ready. They tried to do basically one thing. And that was because he represented the pride in the Arab world, Mr. Nasrallah. He felt a moral, but also political, obligation to show support of a people who were suffering, who were on the receiving end of a genocide. He had to do something, or they would lose all credibility. But he knew they weren't ready for Armageddon. And so he kept it very calculated, calibrated, low level, hoping he could, as it were, carve out a path that would support Gaza, support the people of Gaza facing a genocide, but not bringing on the full force of an Israeli reaction. It didn't work, and I didn't think it would work, but I understood what he was trying to do. Sinwar, the head of Hamas, they hadn't a clue. Remember, Sinwar, he was in an Israeli jail for 22 years. He barely knew the outside world. And then from the jail, he went to Gaza. Gaza is a concentration camp. It's completely sealed off from the outside world. He hadn't a clue how the world worked. Nothing. It was just, as I said, a desperate throw of the dice, because as of October 6th, the whole of Gaza, it seemed, was being left to languish and die, the whole population of Gaza.